The crisis engulfing the Dallas Cowboys right now is not a fleeting storyline, not a simple early season stumble to be brushed aside with cliches about execution or trusting the process, but rather a multi-layered systemic unraveling that exposes deep fissures in coaching philosophy, player development, communication, and roster construction, all of which have converged into a perfect storm that threatens to derail their season before October even arrives. At the center of this implosion is a pass defense that has gone from merely concerning to catastrophically dysfunctional, surrendering explosive plays at a rate so alarming that opponents are now openly abandoning the run game altogether, choosing instead to slice through the secondary with impunity, knowing that Dallas lacks the scheme, pressure, or cohesion to stop them. What began in Week 1 as isolated lapses has metastasized into a full-blown defensive identity crisis. Since then, veteran quarterbacks and unproven rookies alike have carved up this unit with surgical precision, turning the Cowboys' once-vaunted defense into a soft target. Russell Wilson, benched shortly thereafter in New York, looked rejuvenated against Dallas, posting numbers against them that he couldn't replicate against inferior defenses, while rookie Caleb Williams, previously pedestrian, doubled his average production with a career-high performance that featured nearly 300 yards and 4 touchdowns without absorbing a single sack. These aren't outliers. They are symptomatic of a deeper rot, one that begins with a scheme under defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus that is increasingly misaligned with the talent on hand. The zone-heavy system Dallas insists on deploying is neither being learned nor executed effectively, raising fundamental questions about whether it is too complex, poorly taught, or simply unsuited to the personnel. Communication breakdowns, the kind that should never plague veteran cornerbacks and safeties, have become routine, resulting in receivers streaking wide open downfield and leaving defenders gesturing helplessly in the aftermath. Coaches insist that the scheme is sound and that players are bought in, but that assertion strains credulity when juxtaposed with the on-field evidence, and when players themselves, reading between the lines, are reportedly questioning the system's efficacy. Injuries, too, have compounded the problem, with star receiver CeeDee Lamb and offensive lineman Tyler Booker sidelined by high ankle sprains, further straining a roster already stretched thin and leaving quarterback Dak Prescott without his primary weapon as the offense tries to compensate for the defense's shortcomings. The defensive line, once the engine of Dallas's success, has gone silent since the departure of Micah Parsons, failing to generate pressure or disrupt opposing quarterbacks, while blown assignments and a stubborn refusal to blitz have allowed offenses to dictate terms. Simplification of the defensive playbook, an idea now being floated internally, may offer marginal improvement, but it underscores a damning reality. 3 weeks into the season, this coaching staff is scrambling for solutions to problems that should have been addressed months ago. Even Schottenheimer, trying to project confidence, was forced to admit that changes are inevitable, first equivocating that the team might make adjustments before conceding they will, a subtle but telling shift in tone that betrays the urgency of the situation. Yet the nature of those changes remains unclear. Firing Eberflus is not on the table, nor is cutting swaths of underperforming players. That leaves Dallas with limited options. Pursue outside help, perhaps in the form of a controversial but talented free agent like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, or attempt to coach their way out of a crisis that may be beyond schematic tinkering. The front office's recent draft record only deepens the crisis, with high-profile misses like Maisie Smith highlighting a broader failure to replenish the defense with impact talent. And while role players like Dorrance Armstrong have provided flashes, the pipeline has largely run dry. This talent deficit, combined with a schematic approach that fails to maximize the skills of those on the roster, has left Dallas unable to stop the bleeding. Even suggestions to elevate versatile college standouts like Jonathan Blue to fill offensive gaps reflect desperation more than strategy, an acknowledgement that the team must find creative ways to manufacture points because the defense can no longer be trusted to hold leads. Meanwhile, fan frustration is boiling over into something far more volatile than simple disappointment. It's metastasizing into anger, cynicism, and outright revolt. Social media, talk radio, and post-game call-in shows have become battlegrounds of disillusionment, where season ticket holders vent about squandered investments, longtime supporters question their loyalty, and once hopeful believers now speak the language of betrayal. The calls for drastic moves, blockbuster trades to bring in defensive reinforcements, sweeping staff overhauls to signal accountability, even the nuclear option of cleaning house in the front office, are growing louder and more insistent with each passing week. Yet for all the fury, those seismic shifts remain unlikely, at least in the short term. The organization's instinct, as always, is to double down on the existing structure, to preach patience and trust the process, even as the process itself appears irreparably broken. The coaching staff's most recent solution, holding larger defensive meetings to improve communication, feels less like a blueprint for progress and more like a press release crafted to create the illusion of control. It is, as one anonymous veteran player reportedly put it, a band-aid on a bullet wound. Critics have been even less charitable, comparing the move to rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, a cosmetic gesture designed to buy time, distract from the real issues, and project the false confidence of a team that still believes it can steer out of disaster. But the reality is undeniable. No amount of meeting room rhetoric will fix a defense that is structurally unsound, schematically confused, and psychologically broken. Even the few bright spots on this roster have been rendered meaningless by the scale of the collapse. The Cowboys' run defense, among the league's best on paper, is irrelevant when opposing offenses don't even bother testing it, instead slicing through the secondary like a hot knife through butter. The special teams unit, crisp and disciplined, continues to flip field position. But what does it matter if the opposing offense requires only 3 or 4 plays to score from anywhere on the field? Isolated strengths mean nothing when the larger system is failing. And right now, Dallas's system is not just failing, it's imploding under the weight of its own expectations. The deeper cost of this defensive unraveling goes far beyond points allowed or passing yards surrendered. It's corroding the very fabric of the locker room, eroding trust between players and coaches, and casting a long shadow of doubt over the organization's long-term vision. Players who once bought into the scheme are now quietly questioning it. Coaches who once preached discipline and accountability are now scrambling for answers. The front office, once confident it had assembled a Super Bowl-caliber roster, now faces scrutiny for miscalculations in personnel and complacency in roster construction. And hovering above it all is a looming existential question. If this defense, once the cornerstone of the Cowboys' identity, cannot be fixed, what foundation does the team have left? The consequences are particularly brutal for Dak Prescott, whose leadership and performance are now being tested under impossible circumstances. The collapse of the defense has placed an unsustainable burden on the offense, forcing Prescott into a role no quarterback can succeed in for long, the savior who must be perfect just to keep his team competitive. Even if he plays near-flawless football, even if the run game dominates time of possession, even if special teams consistently hand the offense short fields, none of it will matter if the defense remains a sieve.